Now that we have created our app, now we're going to work on creating your first view. And to do that, we will, if we come back to our, so this had from Django.shortcuts import render. We're going to go ahead and enter what they were asking for us on that, so we can go above that. We'll go from, and again with Pycharm, when you start to do these, it's going to automatically suggest things for you as you start to type. If it comes up, I have the D in, I can just hit enter, it'll finish that out with Django since that was the first one. Dot, I'm going to go HTTP, there it is again up top, hit enter. Import, and as you remember, in as far as what we worked in Python, import will bring in different libraries, and we're going to import in HTTP response, which you can see here. Once we start to type that in, it is third down. So if you use your mouse, you can go double click on it, grab that response, and then if you look again back at your right in our first view, we're going to look at defining index, and this index return HTTP hello world. We're just going to create this first request. It's going to return this response of string hello world, you're at the polls index. Okay, so we'll type that in, come to the beginning here. We're going to define, which is a definition. Everybody understands that. Index. We'll go request. Of course, we need our colon out at the end. Enter. Automatically tabs in for us. Return. And then we're going to go HTTP response. And then quotes, hello world, you at the polls index. That is it for that view. So now, if we look, we also have, you notice with Pycharm, if it has this underline like that, one, when you pull over it, it'll give you the option to reformat. And the reason it's asking for that is the standards, which are listed under PEP 8, expects 2 blank lines to be found. You can automatically hit the reformat file, and it'll take care of that for you. So then that goes away. Your errors over here, if you look at them, these are more warnings than anything. This one's saying that, of course, that we haven't used this one up here because we're using an HTTP response instead of render. As we go along further, we'll start to use the render more, and you'll see that as we continue on. So first off, now that we have this created, go back to our tutorial. As it says here, this is the simplest view possible in Django, called the view, and then we're going to map it. Now we need to map it to a URL, and for this we need to the URL conf, and the polls directory create a file called urls.py. Now in ours, as we come back, you can take a look at in your app directory. So we have polls. Okay, so what it's talking about inside the polls directory, or we have no URL conf, but if we look, we do have one that's already been created for us in the actual site one. So we'll get and which we'll get back to that. But we're going to go ahead and create one down here. If we go to polls, right click on it, you can go new, and then we want a Python file, of course, it's a .py, and then we're just going to name this URLs, and you can put the .py or not because it's already going to create a py file for us, so we'll just create that. From there, we're going to call, so we're going to need to import from the Django dot URLs. We're going to import path. And then we're going to, from dot, which basically means all, import views. It's going to import our views. And then we start creating our view patterns. URL patterns equals, and then we are going to path. That's why we imported path, so we can use it. And then here, we'll just do double quotes for meaning that it's going to be right at the base level. And you'll see later when we start adding directories to it, why we're using just that. Views dot index, which was what we created. Oops. Views dot index, and that's the index is what we created when we started our definition statement right here. So we're using the index in our URL, telling them where to map it out to, and then we're just going to name that equals index, meaning it's going to name in our view when it comes up. It's going to name that and it'll be directed at index. Okay, and that is it for that one. The next step, we're going to point the root URLFconf at the polls.urls. So to do that, we're going to come back to our main directory, my site, under the main one. We'll go to urls.py, and we need to add a couple things here. If this one's in the port, you see those three, it means there's more underneath it. So we'll just click the plus out there. We already have Django contrib import admin. That's so we can do the admin side here. We'll get to that one later. And then we have from django.urls import path. We need the path tool just like we did when we created this one, which this one's already been created for us inside the template. So we don't even have to do that one. If we hit enter on this one, we're going to go path. And then we want our polls app so that it knows to direct itself to the polls app, comma, and then we're going to include our polls URLs. Okay, and now we need a comma at the end, separate that out for the next one. And you can see in Pycharm, it always will leave you a red if there is an error. Now the nice thing about it too, so it shows include here, we put that in, but it says we have not imported that. And it'll give you, we just hit import to Django urls.include. You can actually have it just add that right to it for you. Now we have our include statement, our path. So we cover both of these two. Include function allows referencing other URLs, and that means we're referencing, by doing this, we're referencing over to so that we can use our URLs from our polls app from the main site. The include, basically what it does is it chops off whatever part of the URL matched up to that point and sends the remaining string to the included URLFconf for further processing. The idea behind include is to make it easy to plug and play URLs. Since polls are in their own URL .py file, so they can be replaced under polls or under fun polls or under content polls or any other path. So we can create however we want inside of it once we get to our polls. Now that we got our view that we created with our index here with the hello world, we have our URL file that we have matched at. Again, here we have, sometimes it does come up. Oh, I did have an error right there, so it's a good thing we noticed that. URL patterns, I spelled it wrong, patterns. So I'll just change that. We have those. We'll see what happens when we do that. Now that I have the correct directory that I added in with it too, so it gets to our mapping of our URLs. Now we have hello world here at the polls index. Okay, we'll come to Here is the database. Now, automatically, when we created this, it sets this up for us, so we don't need to change anything on this. It's just going to go ahead and set up the SQLite. If we were going to use MySQL or PostSQL, one of those different databases, then we need to change that up, which won't be discussing in this tutorial. So make sure that's correct. We're going to look at our time zone. If you want to change your time zone down here, so UTC, you could change it to local, like if you wanted it for the mountain time, we could change that. But we're just going to leave that currently as it is. So settings should be good. We can close these out.